Amanda Brooks adjusted her dress uniform's collar for the 100th time, fighting the urge to drop into a combat stance as another tentacled dignitary slithered past. The grand Imperial hall of the hegemony stretched before her, a vast cathedral of living crystal and pulsing bioluminescent veins that would have impressed her more if she hadn't spent the last 3 hours watching various alien species compete to see who could grovel the most dramatically. "Remember, Junior Attaché Brooks," Ambassador Chen's voice crackled through her neural link. "This is the first time Earth has been invited to an Imperial coronation. Please try not to start an interstellar incident." Amanda suppressed a snort. After 5 years of military service and 2 as a diplomat, she knew how to handle delicate situations. Still, something about the way the other species kept glancing at the human delegation made her shoulder blades itch. Her combat training categorized each look: dismissive, suspicious, and occasionally hungry. The crystal hall's colors shifted to deep purple, a signal that Supreme Overlord Xthrak, the Magnificent, was about to make his entrance. Amanda had studied the protocol. 3 steps forward, right knee bent at precisely 45 degrees, eyes cast downward, and most importantly, no sudden movements. Xthrak glided into the hall on what the briefing documents called a gravity throne, but what Amanda's marine training classified as an over-engineered flying lazy boy. The Emperor's iridescent scales caught the light, creating rainbow patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't specifically engineered to induce mild vertigo in viewers. "My most gracious subjects," Xthrak's voice resonated through both air and neural networks. "Today we welcome even the youngest species to witness my ascension." Amanda's jaw tightened. Earth had achieved faster than light travel, cured most cancers, and made reality TV actually real. Young was a bit rich. The Emperor's gaze swept the hall, pausing on the human delegation. How fascinating to see Earth's representatives. Such a charming species, despite their limitations. Why, just yesterday, one of my advisors suggested they might make excellent entertainment pets for the noble houses. The hall filled with polite titters. Amanda's hand twitched. "Indeed," Xthrak continued, his scales shifting to a smug chartreuse. "Perhaps we should institute a program. The more primitive species could serve as companions for their betters. The humans, for instance, with their quaint emotional outbursts and simple neural architecture." "Ambassador," Amanda vocalized through the neural link, "I'm about to create a diplomatic incident." "Brooks, don't you dare." But Amanda was already moving. 5 years of combat training and 2 years of diplomatic service created an interesting skill set. She knew exactly how to approach the gravity throne without triggering its defense systems. She understood precisely how to move so the Imperial Guard's predictive algorithms would register her as non-threatening until it was too late. The slap echoed through the crystal hall like a thunderclap. Xthrak's scales cycled through colors so fast he looked like a malfunctioning dance floor. The Imperial Guards froze, their combat programs unable to process someone actually striking the sacred Imperial person. "Listen here, you overgrown mood ring," Amanda's voice carried clearly through the stunned silence. "Humanity may be young by your standards, but we're nobody's pets. We've survived ice ages, invented hot sauce, and still can't agree on how to load a dishwasher. We're chaotic, sure, but that's our strength. And if you think for 1 second that your fancy scales and flying recliner make you better than anyone in this room, then brother, you need a reality check." The silence that followed was so complete you could have heard a quantum particle drop. Then, from somewhere in the back of the hall, a single being started to clap. The sound was quickly muffled, but Amanda saw several species standing straighter, their own bioluminescence brightening with something that looked suspiciously like hope. "Ambassador," Amanda said into the neural link, "I think I just started a revolution. The ambassador's response was lost in the chaos that followed, but Amanda could have sworn she heard him trying not to laugh. "Play it again," demanded Krithax, the seven-armed security chief of the Imperial Palace. His facial tentacles curled in what his species considered a frown as he watched the footage for the 300th time. On the holoscreen, Amanda Brooks' perfect form played out in slow motion. The way she pivoted her hip, the graceful arc of her arm, the resounding impact that sent Emperor Extract's scales cycling through colors not seen since the Great Nebula light show of the previous century. "I don't understand," Krithax muttered to his assistant, a floating orb of crystalline intelligence. "Our predictive algorithms should have stopped her. She moved like someone who knew exactly how not to look threatening," his assistant chimed. "The humans call it playing it cool." Across the galactic network, the footage had taken on a life of its own. Some genius had set it to something called Eye of the Tiger, while another version featured a bass drop perfectly timed to the moment of impact. The most popular version, however, was the one that showed the Emperor's scales changing colors to the beat of "Stayin' Alive." In the lower levels of the capital station, street artists were already painting stylized versions of the Brooks stance on walls. Security forces would arrive to paint over them, only to find the artists had used quantum-locked paint that existed in multiple states until observed by Imperial authority figures, at which point it would transfer itself to a different wall. Ambassador Chen sat in his office, watching the various memes scroll past on his neural feed, while nursing a very large glass of Earth's finest whiskey. "Brooks," he said to the empty room, "you've either doomed us all or started something revolutionary. I'm not sure which would be worse." His neural feed pinged. Another variation had just gone viral. Someone had taken footage from 20 different security cameras and edited them together to create a Matrix-style bullet-time view of the slap. The comment section was filled with technical analysis of Amanda's form from species that had never even heard of Earth sports before. "Did you see the weight distribution?" One comment read, "Perfect energy transfer from ground to impact. Humans actually use their gravitational disadvantage as leverage. Look at the neural pattern spikes just before impact." Another noter, "She went from diplomatic mode to combat mode faster than our best warriors can switch battle protocols." In the depths of the Imperial biology archives, a group of xenologists had formed an impromptu research group. They were analyzing everything from Amanda's muscle movements to her brainwave patterns at the moment of impact. Their preliminary paper, "The Biomechanics of Human Emotional Responses, a Case Study in Diplomatic Physical Feedback," had already been downloaded 10 million times. Meanwhile, in a secure location that definitely wasn't the maintenance level of Sector 7, Amanda Brooks was watching the whole thing unfold on a smuggled datapad. "I still can't believe you added that spin at the end," said her current host, a renegade xenoanthropologist named Dr. Zix. The rotational force added at least 3% more humiliation to the impact. "That wasn't planned," Amanda admitted, scrolling through another wave of memes. "I had to compensate for the gravity throne's stabilization field." Dr. Zix's color spots pulsed with excitement. "You mean you calculated anti-gravity compensation mid-slap, while processing complex emotional responses? How do you not overload your neural pathways?" "We call it going with the flow," Amanda said, then paused as a new alert flashed across the screen. The Emperor had finally released an official statement. The broadcast began playing automatically. Extract, his scales now a carefully controlled shade of dignified azure, addressed the galaxy. "This unprovoked attack proves the barbaric nature of..." He got no further. Someone had already remixed his statement into a dance track, with the word barbaric looped over a heavy bass line. "You know," Amanda said to Dr. Zix, "I think the galaxy was ready for a little chaos." In the distance, they could hear the sound of Imperial guards trying to stop a flash mob of various species practicing their slapping form. The Imperial Psychology Council had been in session for 72 standard hours, their tentacles and various sensory appendages twitching with frustration as they reviewed the Brooks incident for the 100th time. "It makes no sense," Chief Psychologist Vixena announced, her crystal crest flickering with puzzlement. "The human's neural patterns show no signs of premeditation. This wasn't a calculated act of rebellion. It was a genuine emotional response." The council chamber erupted in confused whistles and clicks. The concept of acting without calculating every possible outcome was alien to most advanced species. The fact that it had resulted in the most successful anti-imperial statement in recent history was causing something of an existential crisis. Meanwhile, in what used to be a forgotten storage bay on level 47, Amanda Brooks was teaching a very different kind of lesson. No, your tentacles are too tense," she told the cephalopoid student before her. "Combat isn't about maximum force. It's about finding the right moment. Watch." Amanda demonstrated the move again, this time against a practice drone. Her movement was fluid, almost casual, until the perfect moment when every muscle snapped into place. The drone went flying. See, humans call it reading the room. It's not just about the physical strike. It's about understanding when something needs to be said or done, or, she grinned, slapped. Her underground dojo had started as a hiding place, but word had spread through the station's shadow networks. Species that had been under Imperial control for millennia came seeking something they couldn't quite name. They found Amanda teaching more than just combat. "Today's lesson is about why we fight," she announced to the packed room. Beings of all shapes and sizes crowded the space, some floating, some crawling, all focused intently on the human before them. "The Empire teaches that control is power, that every action must be calculated, every response measured. But look at nature, real nature, not their sanitized version. Even the most peaceful creatures have lines they won't let others cross." A holographic display showed Earth wildlife. A mother bear defending her cubs, a tiny mongoose facing down a cobra, a hummingbird chasing an eagle from its territory. "The key isn't learning how to fight," Amanda continued, moving through a series of slow combat forms. "It's learning when not to. True strength is knowing the difference between a threat and an annoyance, between standing your ground and seeking vengeance." In the back of the room, Dr. Zix was recording everything, his color spots pulsing with excitement as he documented this unprecedented integration of combat training and philosophy. "Now," Amanda said, a mischievous glint in her eye, "who wants to learn how to high-five?" The resulting chaos as multiple species attempted to master this new combat technique would have given the Imperial Council several new types of anxiety. A gelatinous being accidentally high-fived itself into two separate entities. A silicon-based life form got so excited it crystallized temporarily. But beneath the laughter and confusion, something was changing. Species that had been engineered for compliance for generations were rediscovering their spines, metaphorically, and, in some cases, literally. On the other side of the station, Emperor Xthrak watched the security footage of these classes with growing unease. His advisors had assured him that the human would be found and reeducated within days. Instead, her influence was spreading like a virus through the Imperial population. "Impossible," he muttered, his scales shifting to a worried mauve. "They're just teaching each other to hit things." "Not quite, Your Luminescence," his intelligence chief replied. "According to our analysis, they're learning something far more dangerous, which is how to not be afraid." In her dojo, Amanda was demonstrating a basic boxing stance to a group of enthusiastic students when her neural link buzzed with an encrypted message from Ambassador Chen. The Empire just upgraded your status from diplomatic incident to cultural contamination threat level red. Congratulations. You're now officially more dangerous than that time someone taught the hive minds about individual fashion choices. Amanda smiled as she watched a three-armed warrior species practice fist bumps with a gaseous entity. Good, she vocalized back, because we're just getting started. Welcome to the Brooks Academy of Human Expression, Lesson 1. Amanda announced to her latest class, standing in what used to be a forgotten hydroponics bay. The space had been transformed with smuggled cushions, makeshift training mats, and holographic projectors running interference patterns against Imperial scans. Today's group was her most diverse yet, a collective of crystalline beings who shared a hive mind. 3 vapor phase entities containing their form in force fields, a dozen various organic species, and even one particularly rebellious Imperial guard who'd shown up in poorly applied civilian camouflage. Today, Amanda continued, we're going to learn about something the Empire has deemed more dangerous than antimatter weapons, the High Five. The disguised guard's crystal facets flickered with confusion, but our intelligence reports classified that as a combat technique. Amanda bit back a smile. Not exactly. Watch carefully. She demonstrated with Dr. Zix, their hands meeting in a perfect slap of victory. The sound echoed through the chamber, making several energy-based life forms pulse with surprise. This, she explained, is celebration, joy, shared achievement. The Empire teaches that such displays are primitive. But tell me, what did you feel when you heard that sound? Unauthorized neural excitement, one vapor being whispered. Spontaneous crystallization urges, added a silicon life form. And a logical desire to participate. The guard admitted, facets dimming with embarrassment. Amanda grinned. Exactly. Because despite what the Empire claims, emotions aren't a weakness. They're a universal language, one they've been teaching you to forget. She pulled up a holographic display showing various human expressions. Today's goal isn't just to learn the High Five. It's to understand why we do it. Emotion isn't just feeling. It's communication. The next hour was chaos of the most beautiful kind. Vapor beings tried to high-five each other, resulting in small atmospheric disturbances. The crystalline collective struggled with the concept of individual celebration until one member experienced personal pride for the first time, causing a chain reaction of enlightenment through their network. Careful with the hive mind, Amanda called out as the crystals began to strobe with newfound individual emotions. Remember, small steps. You don't want to overload your shared consciousness. Dr. Zix, recording everything from a corner, was practically vibrating with excitement. This is unprecedented. Species that were genetically modified for emotional suppression are displaying spontaneous emotional development. The Empire's entire control system is based on the idea that this is impossible. Humans have a saying, Amanda replied, helping a tentacled being perfect its high five trajectory. You can't stop the signal. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Palace, an aide was presenting the latest intelligence report to an increasingly agitated Emperor Extract. The contamination is spreading, your luminescence. We've detected unauthorized celebrations in 17 sectors. Workers are expressing personal preferences. There are reports of spontaneous hugging in the mining colonies. Streck's scales shifted to a dangerous red. Hugging. In my empire. It gets worse. The aide continued, trembling. Someone taught the maintenance drones about feel-good music. They've been adding bass drops to the Imperial anthem. In her underground academy, Amanda was moving on to advanced lessons. Today's advanced topic: the difference between a sarcastic slow clap and genuine applause. This is critical for any resistance movement. You need to know how to properly express disapproval of authority figures. The disguised guard, who had become one of her best students, raised a crystalline appendage. Is this why the Emperor's last speech was met with slow clapping across 17 star systems? That was an unauthorized field test, Amanda said with mock seriousness, but an impressive one. Now, who's ready to learn about group hugs? The resulting enthusiasm nearly overloaded the room's stealth shielding. As Amanda watched her students attempt to navigate the complexities of multi-species group hugs, she received another message from Ambassador Chen. The Empire just listed unauthorized emotional education as a Class 1 cultural crime. You've been upgraded from threat to mimetic hazard. The last time they used that classification was for the great comedy plague of the Third Dynasty. Amanda watched as the crystalline guard successfully initiated a group hug with 3 different species types without shattering. Perfect, she whispered. Time for Phase 2. Teaching them about dance parties. The Imperial Propaganda Department was having its worst day in 3 centuries. Their latest anti-human broadcast had just backfired spectacularly, and the department head scales were cycling through shades of embarrassment, never before recorded in the color spectrum. On every screen across the Empire, security footage played of Amanda Brooks breaking up an interspecies bar fight in the lower levels of Station 7. Instead of using force, she had deployed what the intelligence services were calling weapons of mass distraction. Dad jokes. Why did the quantum particle cross the superposition? She had asked the 2 fighting species, who paused mid-brawl. Because it was both here and there. The resulting groans had successfully diffused the situation, and the security feed showed all 3 species sharing a drink afterward. This is catastrophic, the propaganda chief moaned, their tentacles writhing. We try to show her as a violent revolutionary, and instead she's going viral for peacefully resolving conflicts with terrible puns. In the Imperial War Room, Emperor Xthrak watched the footage with growing horror. Are you telling me she's more dangerous when she's being nice? His military advisor, a being made of living shadow, rippled uncomfortably. Our analysis suggests that human charm is more contagious than any bioweapon we've ever encountered. 3 different species have already added dad jokes to their cultural archives. Meanwhile, in a busy market district, Amanda was demonstrating another dangerous human technique, customer service with a genuine smile. See, she told the gathered crowd of market vendors, you don't need neural compliance fields to make people want to buy things. Just be genuinely happy to see them. The concept of actually enjoying interaction with customers was so revolutionary that several vendors had to sit down. One photosynthetic being was so excited, they started blooming out of season. But the Imperial guidelines state that all commercial interactions must be properly regulated, protested a former compliance officer who had gone rogue after experiencing their first sincere thank you. Watch this, Amanda said, approaching a grumpy-looking crystal being. Hi there. That's a beautiful resonance frequency you're vibrating at today. Have you been practicing? The crystal being's facets flushed with unexpected pleasure, and within minutes they had bought 3 times their intended purchase, simply because someone had noticed their personal wavelength choice. Back in the Imperial Palace, the reports kept getting worse. Your luminescence, a nervous aide reported, we've detected unauthorized compliments in 17 sectors. The mining colonies are reporting a 300% increase in positive interactions. And worst of all, people are starting to mean what they say. Xthrak's scales turned a pale, sickly yellow. Impossible. Our entire social structure is built on carefully regulated insincerity. But the evidence was undeniable. Security footage showed species actually listening to each other. Customer service drones were developing individual personalities. Someone had even taught the maintenance bots about coffee breaks and workplace banter. In her latest underground session, Amanda was teaching an advanced class, genuine compliments, and how to receive them without short-circuiting. Remember, she told her students, The goal isn't just to say nice things. It's to mean them. The Empire fears this because once you start being genuine, you can't go back to empty protocols. Dr. Zix, still documenting everything, had to pause his recording when his students successfully gave him a heartfelt compliment about his research methods. His color spots took 3 hours to return to their normal pattern. The final straw for the Empire came when Amanda's methods reached the Imperial Guard Academy. During a standard inspection, instead of the traditional emotionless salute, a young guard had smiled and said, "Having a great day, sir. Your scales are looking particularly authoritative today." The reviewing officer had been so shocked by the genuine enthusiasm that they had to be carried to the medical bay. Ambassador Chen's latest message to Amanda was brief. The Empire has just classified genuine emotional expression as a form of revolutionary action. Congratulations, you've made sincerity illegal. Also, please stop teaching the station's AI about stand-up comedy. It's been practicing one-liners during official announcements. Amanda, watching as a group of former Imperial citizens practiced giving each other pep talks, simply smiled. Tell the ambassador that making sincerity illegal is like banning gravity. You can write all the laws you want, but people will still fall for each other. The Imperial Science Council had outdone themselves this time. Their latest creation, the emotion suppression field generator, was supposed to be their ultimate weapon against the growing human influence. They'd installed one in every major gathering space across the Empire. The only problem, they hadn't counted on human spite. You know what's funny about telling humans not to feel things? Amanda lectured to her underground class, now hidden in an abandoned cargo bay protected by quantum scramblers. It makes us feel things even harder. Her students, a mix of various species including several Imperial scientists who had defected after experiencing their first group hug, watched in fascination as she paced the room. The Empire just installed emotion suppression fields. Great. Watch this. She activated a holoscreen showing various Earth media. Today's lesson, soap operas and professional wrestling. In the Imperial Palace, alarms were blaring. Extract scales had turned an unprecedented shade of panic as reports flooded in. "Your luminescence," the chief science officer stammered. "The suppression fields, they're having an unexpected effect. The more we try to dampen emotions, the more dramatic everyone's becoming." Security footage from across the Empire told the story. In a mining colony, workers had turned their daily shifts into what they called a reality show, complete with confessional booths and dramatic confrontations about who stole whose lunch from the quantum fridge. The crystalline beings had discovered professional wrestling and were now hosting underground crystal smash events, complete with elaborate backstories and entrance music. Their matches never actually involved fighting, just incredibly dramatic poses and monologues about honor. "It gets worse," the intelligence chief added, their shadow form flickering with distress. Someone introduced the hive minds to dating shows. They're now speed dating other collective consciousnesses and having existential crises about whether they're ready to merge. Back in Amanda's academy, the lessons continued. Today's advanced topic, the art of the dramatic exit. Sometimes, you don't need to fight. You just need to storm out of a room while delivering the perfect one-liner. Her star pupil, the former Imperial Guard who had long since abandoned their camouflage, demonstrated by spinning on their crystalline heel and declaring, "I can't even process this level of neural density right now," before gliding away in a perfect display of engineered disdain. "Magnificent," Amanda applauded. The hair flip was a nice touch, even though you don't actually have hair. Dr. Zix's latest research paper, The Weaponization of Drama, How Human Entertainment Bypasses Emotional Suppression, had been downloaded so many times it had crashed the underground academic networks. His follow-up study on the psychological impact of binge watching was already being called revolutionary mainly because it actually caused a revolution on 3 mining planets. The Empire's attempt to counter with mandatory meditation chambers backfired spectacularly when someone started broadcasting Earth soap operas inside them. The resulting emotional breakthrough cases overwhelmed the Imperial medical systems. "Your luminescence," the cultural minister reported. "We've lost control of the entertainment networks. The maintenance AI has started writing its own sitcom about the daily lives of repair drones. And it's actually pretty good." Extract, watching his empire dissolve into what humans called must-see TV, made one last desperate attempt. He ordered all citizens to watch state-approved educational content about the dangers of emotional expression. The response? Someone, and all evidence pointed to a certain former Marine, released what they called a reality show about life in the Imperial Palace. The security footage had been edited to include confessional interviews, dramatic music, and weekly elimination challenges. The season final, which featured Extract's original coronation and the famous slap, broke all known viewing records across the galaxy. Ambassador Chen's latest message to Amanda was both impressed and exhausted. The Empire just classified Earth's entertainment industry as a weapon of mass cultural destruction. Also, please tell me you didn't actually teach the station's AI about writing fan fiction. Amanda, watching as a group of former Imperial citizens performed a dramatic reading of their self-written space opera, just grinned. "Tell the ambassador that you can't stop the signal, especially when it comes with a killer soundtrack and character development." The Imperial Palace's main broadcasting chamber had never been so crowded. Every major news network in the galaxy had sent representatives to witness what the Empire was calling a strategic cultural response to the Brooks situation. What they got instead was something that would shake the foundations of Imperial society. Amanda Brooks stood before the assembled galactic media, wearing her slightly wrinkled diplomatic uniform. No weapons, no dramatic entrance, no reality show camera crew, though several had begged to cover the event. "I'm here today," she began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber, "to apologize." The collective gasp from the audience nearly triggered the room's emergency atmospheric controls. In 3,000 years of Imperial history, no one had ever apologized for anything. The concept of admitting error was so foreign that several translation matrices crashed trying to process it. "Not for the slap," she clarified, drawing another wave of shocked murmurs. "That was a genuine response to disrespect, and I stand by it. I'm apologizing for not taking a moment to explain why it happened." In the Imperial Command Center, Extract watched with his advisors as every sincerity detector in the palace began registering unprecedented levels. His scales shifted through colors so fast that the medical team was put on standby. "What you're witnessing," Dr. Zix narrated for his ongoing research stream, "is something the Empire never predicted: strategic vulnerability." Amanda continued, her voice steady. "Humans have a saying: violence shouldn't be the first response. I had other options. I could have requested formal mediation. I could have initiated a diplomatic protest. Instead, I let my frustration guide my hand, and in doing so, I missed an opportunity for real dialogue." The sincerity readings were now off the charts. 3 different species known for their emotional control had to be escorted out because they started experiencing spontaneous feelings. "But here's the thing about humans," Amanda said, a small smile playing at her lips. "We learn from our mistakes. We grow. We change. And most importantly, we help others do the same." In the back of the chamber, her former students watched with pride. The crystalline guard who had first joined her classes was now openly weeping, creating a beautiful rainbow effect through their facets. "So yes, I'm sorry for the method, but not the message. Every species in this galaxy has the right to stand up for their dignity. Every being has the right to feel, to express, to be real. The Empire's emergency response team reported a wave of unauthorized emotional outbursts spreading across the station. Several long-serving Imperial officials were seen actually meaning what they said during regular communications. And to Emperor Extract, Amanda added, looking directly into the main camera, "I offer a human custom called starting over. No games, no shows, no dramatic exits. Just two beings talking as equals." In the command center, Extract's scales had settled on a color never before seen in Imperial records. His chief psychologist would later classify it as enlightened confusion. The real shock came during the question and answer session that followed. For the first time in Imperial history, reporters asked questions they actually wanted answers to, rather than following the approved script. Ambassador Chen's message arrived just as Amanda was finishing. "You just broke every known protocol for public appearances, violated 17 different Imperial laws about emotional display, and somehow made saying sorry into an act of revolution. The Cultural Affairs Office has officially given up trying to classify your actions." As Amanda left the chamber, she passed a group of young Imperial citizens practicing something they'd learned from Earth's archives: group therapy. "Remember," she heard one say to the others, "it's not about being perfect, it's about being real." Dr. Zix's final research note for the day reads simply, "Hypothesis. The most dangerous human weapon isn't their ability to fight, but their capacity to change. And more importantly, their gift for helping others do the same." The Grand Imperial Hall had been transformed. Gone were the intimidating neural suppressors and emotional dampening fields. Instead, the space hummed with something the Empire had long forgotten: natural energy. Emperor Extract, his scales a nervous lavender, stood before a most unusual instructor. "Okay, let's try this again," Amanda said patiently. "The key to a perfect high five isn't in the hand position. It's in the spirit of the thing. You have to actually be happy about the achievement you're celebrating." The Emperor's latest attempt resulted in a weak pat that made several of his advisors wince. The former ruler of 1,000 systems was being defeated by basic human celebration techniques. "Perhaps if we regulated the force output," suggested an anxious protocol droid. "That's your problem right there," Amanda explained, now speaking to the entire gathered court. "You're all trying to calculate something that's supposed to be spontaneous. Watch this." She turned to Dr. Zix, who had just finished publishing his groundbreaking paper on human emotional intelligence. "Hey Doc, your research just got accepted by the new Galactic Journal of Cultural Studies." Their high five echoed through the hall like a thunderclap of joy. Several crystalline beings started resonating in harmony with the pure emotion of the moment. "See." Amanda turned back to Extract. "You've got to feel it. Remember how you felt when you finally agreed to the constitutional monarchy proposal." Extract's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. "When the council voted to share power, I actually felt relieved." "Exactly. That's your moment. Use that feeling." This time, when the Emperor raised his hand, something was different. His scales rippled with genuine emotion as he remembered the weight lifting from his shoulders. The high five that followed wasn't perfect, but it was real. The assembled court erupted in spontaneous applause, not the regulated, rhythmic clapping of old, but a chaotic, joyful celebration. "Breaking news," the station's AI announced, having long since abandoned its formal programming for a more casual style. Emperor successfully completes basic human celebration protocol. In related news, Imperial stock market surges on wave of genuine optimism. The ceremony that followed would be remembered as the day the Empire learned to chill. Representatives from every member species lined up to share in the new ritual. The vapor beings created high-five-shaped clouds. The hive minds synchronized their consciousness to create perfect high-five harmonics. Even the quantum probability aliens managed to high-five in all possible dimensions simultaneously. Ambassador Chen, watching from the diplomatic section, sent his final report to Earth. Operation Cultural Exchange complete. Turns out the secret to galactic peace wasn't advanced technology or military might. It was teaching an emperor how to celebrate small wins. In her new office at the Galactic Institute of Emotional Intelligence, formerly the Imperial Center for Emotional Suppression, Amanda put the finishing touches on the curriculum. Classes like Introduction to Group Hugs and Advanced Sincere Compliments had waiting lists centuries long. "You know," Dr. Zix said, his color spots pulsing with amusement, "when you slapped the Emperor, did you ever think it would end with you teaching him to high-five?" "Honestly," Amanda replied, watching through her window as a group of former Imperial guards practiced their victory dances, "I just wanted him to understand that humans weren't pets. Instead, we taught the whole galaxy how to pet." The final scene that day was of X-Thrak, standing before the Galactic Council, his scales a previously unknown shade that the cultural anthropologists would later classify as contentment. "My fellow beings," he announced, "I've learned something important. True power isn't in controlling emotions. It's in sharing them." Also, he added with what could only be described as a smirk, "These dad jokes are actually pretty good. Why did the photon check into a hotel? Because it was light baggage." The groans that filled the chamber were the most beautiful sound of genuine expression the galaxy had ever heard. And somewhere in the back, Amanda Brooks smiled, knowing that sometimes the biggest revolutions start not with a bang, but with a high five.